Justice Ginsburg dies. Speaking out against George Soros is considered anti-Semitic, and there's definitely a distinction between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Hello, my name is Todd. I want to thank you for tuning into the Teal Jack channel today. I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch one of my videos. It really does mean a lot to me, and I just hope you're having a wonderful day. So what I'm going to talk about first has to do with Justice Ginsburg. So Justice Ginsburg died last week, and I'm seeing lots of reports on TV on what a wonderful person she was and what an incredible justice she was, and we need to replace her with somebody that's like her. Well, myself as a conservative, I have a major problem with that. Number one, she always seemed to be on the opposite side of the Constitution. Her rulings, and granted, I'm not an attorney, haven't spent a single day in law school, but her rulings have always troubled me and always seemed to be very unconstitutional. Her basis for her rulings seem to be based on opinion or where the Constitution should be put into play based off of modern day standards instead of based off of how the Constitution was written by the founding fathers. And so that always troubled me. You know, one of the big ones was her ruling on Obamacare. You know, she cited that Obamacare could be done. And I disagree with Justice Roberts on that case. And now got stuck with Obamacare. And it's still in play. And should Joe Biden get put in effect into the presidency, he could in turn wipe out the executive order that took out the teeth to Obamacare, and then we'd be stuck with Obamacare again. And it did nothing but destroy insurance in our country. But that's a different story. So my initial stance on an opinion for Justice Ginsburg passing away is this is a good thing, and potentially we could get somebody who's more of a constitutionalist in play. I've been troubled with one of Trump's nominees, Gorsuch. I disagreed with his stance on one of his rulings here of late. I don't see where his ruling was found in Constitution. But that's, again, a story for another day, and I'm not going to get into the details of it. I just fully disagreed with it. So to look for somebody who's more of a constitutionalist, I hope maybe we're going to rule on and put somebody in play who really does hold to what the Constitution says, because Ginsburg really didn't seem to. She seemed to be very anti-constitutionalist in her rulings and trying to reshape America from the courts instead of through law. And I disagreed with that completely. And so my initial stance was to take the stance the Republicans did back with Obama's last appointee, and that was to hold out and wait for that nomination to be confirmed when a new president comes to play and let him make that choice. But with some of the actions of the left here of late, I am now starting to wonder if we should maybe not do that. Yeah, I know the fair thing would be for us to wait for the new president to make that choice for the Supreme Court, since we are in an election year, as the Republicans stated the last round, and ultimately we got Trump to put in that nomination instead of the awful choice Obama had put forth. But of late, I'm starting to think the other way around it. I'm starting to think that maybe we should not wait for the new presidency, and that President Trump should put forth somebody and let's get him confirmed right away. And one of my reasonings for that is what's going to happen with the outcome of the court or the outcome of the election. Right now, the court would probably be split 4-4, although you never know with Roberts. He seems to make these off-the-wall rulings that just I find unbelievably mind-boggling, and the decisions he made. And I'm not so sure about Gorsuch either on where he's going to lie. So to say it's going to be absolutely split 4-4, I'm not so sure on that. But should there be any sort of screw up in the election, or the Democrats trying to steal the election with voter fraud, and it goes through the court system, and we don't end up with a true winner of the election by a given date, we're going to get stuck with Nancy Pelosi, and that's awful in itself. So I think it's really important to have every judge positioned at the Supreme Court, because I'm sure the election outcome will end up there in the long run. And granted, they might speed it to get to the forefront of the Supreme Court, but I still think the election's going to end up there. Either Trump will sue or Biden and the Democrats will sue. But either way, I've got a strong feeling that's where our election will ultimately end up. And therefore, I think it's important that we have that 9th seat seated. And so I'm in favor now of, not in the fairness for the Democrats as it would be to hold off and let the new president make that choice. I think it's more important now than ever to have that seat confirmed. I just hope this election would be a good choice. And I was troubled this weekend that 2 women were put up. I know nothing of these women, but what troubled me wasn't that it was 2 women that Trump put forward. It's how the news media made it sound, that there were no other choices and Trump's just putting up these 2 women. And because I am sick and tired of what I would consider identity politics, where they're pitching somebody solely based off of their sex or their skin color. Now, if these 2 women are extremely qualified and are full-blown constitutionalist judges that don't have any leftist swing to let's interpret the Constitution in a modern-day perspective, then okay, I'm on board with it. I just want there to be fairness in our country, and that's we put forth who the best is. Whether it be male, female, black, white, Indian, Latino, that should not matter. It's where they stand in their person, where they stand in their convictions, and who they are in their character. That's what should be brought forth for who the Supreme Court is. The character of the person and not the sex of the person. My next topic has to do with George Soros. And that's, we seem to be seeing this whole, quote, right-wing conspiracy that George Soros had nothing to do with the Nazis, and that if you speak out against him, you're anti-Semite. And I found a couple documents that show that, where anti-Semitism is the forefront of these people's minds. And one of those comes from this guy by the name of Seth Cohen, who's a contributor to Forbes. And his bottom of the line is that those who speak out against George Soros are doing it because they're anti-Semitic. But it's just completely wrong. And here's why. I pulled up the 60 Minutes video that was done several years back with an interview of George Soros. Now, I'm going to read to you the transcript that I put together based off that video. And it reads this. Croft states, "You're a Hungarian Jew who escaped the Holocaust by posing as a Christian." Soros says, "Right. And you watch lots of people get shipped off to death camps." Soros, "Right. I was 14 years old, and I would say that's when my character was made." Croft, "In what way?" Soros, "That one should think ahead, that one should understand and anticipate events, and when one is threatened, it was a tremendous threat of evil. It was a very personal experience of evil." Croft, "My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson." Soros, Yes. Croft, "Went out, in fact, and helped with the confiscations of properties from the Jews? Soros. That's right. Croft. But that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many years. Many years. It was difficult. Soros. Not at all. Not at all. Maybe as a child, you don't see the connection. But it created no problem at all. Croft, no feeling of guilt? Soros, no. Croft, for example, I'm Jewish, and I'm here watching these people go. I could just as easily be there. I should be there. None of that. Soros, well, of course I could be on the other side. I could be the one from whom the thing is being taken away. But there was no sense that I should be there because that was, well, actually, with a smile on his face, funny way, it's just like in market that if I were there, if I wasn't doing it, somebody else would be taking away anyhow. And it was, whether I was there or not, I was only a spectator. The property was being taken away, so I had no role in taking away the property, so I had no sense of guilt. Now, as I read through the transcript that I made of that interview, and I hope you catch the difficulty of reading Soros' answers. They came across as a guy who was fishing, trying to find the right answer to say. And in some cases, it just sounded like utter gibberish. Ramblings, if you would. But I want to focus on, because so many of those who fact-checked the story that Soros was a Nazi sympathizer, that he took part in the stealing of property while Jews are being sent off to the Holocaust. And that's just completely false, because he was just a spectator and he had no role in taking the property. And so they view that anybody that says anything against George Soros is being anti-Semitic because it's not based on the facts of what he said. But I'm going to reread his last statement. Well, of course I could be on the other side. I could be the one from whom the thing is being taken away. But there's no sense that I should be there because that was, well, actually, funny way, it's just like the market. If I weren't there, if I wasn't doing it, somebody else would be taking it away anyhow. And that was whether I was there or not. I was only a spectator. The property was being taken away, so I had no role in taking away the property, so I had no sense of guilt. So I have no guilt when I'm in a store and I watch a bunch of people looting the store. And yet I'm with the same group who's in there stealing and looting. So I'm not feeling guilty because I'm not actually the one stealing and looting. That's kind of his take. And what troubles me is they're relying on that statement to prove that he wasn't a Nazi sympathizer. He's taking away property, or he's with the people taking away property of people that are of his own religion. Now keep in mind, he escaped the Nazi Holocaust by pretending to be somebody he's not, i.e. a Christian. Now, if he's truly proud of his Jewish heritage, then why, after the whole Holocaust and the whole Nazi regime was put down, why did he not convert back to his traditional family name? Yet instead, he kept the name Soros, and he's still using it to this day, instead of honoring his own family name. I could understand taking on an image and a persona of somebody else to save the death camps or the tyranny the Nazis were putting upon the Jews, because I truly believe that many of the Jews really didn't know what was truly taking place. And if they did hear what was taking place, they didn't really believe it. But I can understand wanting to take on a new persona so that you're not wrapped up in the discrimination that was taking place. That was very apparent. And I can understand that. But what I can't understand is keeping a false name your entire life instead of converting back to your original family heritage name. But his answers are so troubling. It's as if he's trying to justify in his head what he did when he knew what he was doing was wrong. And I personally can't imagine seeing some of my friends from church being hauled off to concentration camps or having all their property stolen by government officials, and I'm standing there taking part in it. And I can't comprehend for the life of me not feeling guilty that I'm not being wrapped up with them. His answers are troubling. And the troubling aspect for me is this interview itself leads me to believe that yes, he was indeed a Nazi sympathizer. And yeah, he has no feeling of guilt. I believe he doesn't. Because he was part of it. So therefore, to speak out against George Soros has nothing to do with me being an anti-Semite. It has everything to do with where he's pitching his money to. And that leads me to Fox News shutting down the former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. They literally shut him down when he brought up the fact that George Soros has spent millions of dollars to aid in county elections to get radical leftists into position. And it makes me wonder if the fruitcake that is now the district attorney here in Portland wasn't funded by George Soros to end up in that position he's at, because he's not prosecuting anybody with the connections of Antifa and the rioting taking place in Portland. He's releasing them back on the streets. And in fact, the one guy who murdered the guy wearing the Patriot Prayer hat here very recently, he was actually arrested and released instead of being in prison where he belonged for the crime he had committed. And had the DA done his job, instead of releasing him while they decide on the charges to put upon him, he should have been in prison, get the charges filed, get him off, put him before a judge, get his bail set. But no, he was released and he goes out and he murders a guy. And I would love personally to see the family of the guy who was shot. I would love to see his family turn around and sue the city of Portland and the DA for the loss of their loved one. Now I'm going to shift from Soros, and now I'm going to talk about the last thing that I want to discuss. And that's some of the distinct differences between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. You know, one of the greatest differences has to do with the way they present themselves in their speech. Donald Trump answers questions off the fly. Donald Trump seems to be able to speak without a teleprompter. And he goes out and he speaks very eloquently. Joe Biden seems to act like the absent-minded professor. Seems to be the only way he can speak is with a teleprompter or with an earbud in his ear and somebody telling him what to say. But he doesn't answer questions. And when he does, it's like the questions were actually given to him in advance. And those are the questions he's being asked. And none of the questions asked are usually a hard-hitting question. They're all softballs, so to speak. Given to him in advance, tossed his direction, and then he answers on it. And yet Trump will stand before a group of press and take answers. And they hit him with everything. And he answers very eloquently. He answers to the belief. Another distinction, I believe, between Donald Trump and Joe Biden is there's no questioning what Donald Trump believes. He speaks his mind freely, more than I probably ever would. He says things that I would never say. He does criticize people and attack them personally, and I know I wouldn't go down that road to the degree that he does. I would bring out their faults, but I wouldn't make fun of them, as he oftentimes does in his tweets. But you really get a sense of who Donald Trump is when he speaks or when he tweets. It's quite apparent. I've got no idea what Joe Biden believes, because he's flipping and flopping right and left regularly, like a fish out of water flopping on the ground. I have no idea what he believes today. It's hard to say. I can't line him up. It seems like 1 minute he's against one thing and now all of a sudden he's for it. I have no idea where he goes. And that to me is scary in of itself, because that leads me to go, if he's elected, what are we going to get? I think we're going to get an unknown should he be elected. Now, another distinction between the two is Donald Trump is out and about, going about to various states campaigning. And Joe Biden seems to continue to campaign from his basement. Okay, so the other day he came out to some field in Delaware, but he doesn't seem to be able to go to various locations. Okay, yeah, he went down to Florida. Why? Well, because he's behind in the Latino community in Florida. So he went down there briefly. And that's been about it. Most of his campaign since COVID hit is out of his basement. You know, another aspect to the two, Trump takes responsibility. He does what's best for our country in his own mind's eye. Sometimes I agree with him, sometimes I don't. But he's at least trying to lead the country. Now, playing down the virus, yeah, I think he should have played down the virus. Because people remember, the borders get closed and toilet paper couldn't be found on shelves. And in some cases, the canned goods shelves were about bare. So should Trump have said, yeah, this thing's going to be terrible and a lot of people are going to die, it would have resulted in a massive panic greater than what we saw. Probably people fighting more than we saw over toilet paper or canned food goods or at the meat counter. So Trump playing it down, I think, was the right call as the president. I think it helped prevent a greater panic than we saw. And that's presidential. Some distinct differences between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden's out blaming Donald Trump for the deaths related to COVID. Joe Biden's out wanting to blame Trump for the environment we're living in. Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden say, you know, that Donald Trump is taking us away from our democracy and that he's this utter dictator. I see the opposite. They're the ones that are the dictators. They're the ones that are operating outside the Constitution. In fact, they're wanting to take away your constitutional rights. The main one being the Second Amendment. Donald Trump's defending the Second Amendment. Joe Biden wants to take your guns away. He wants to instill some sort of gun licensing now, where even if you currently own a gun, you've got to go get a federal license. And one more time, that rings in my ear, an ongoing payment to the government to possess that which is granted to you in the Second Amendment. I don't want more of that. And I hope you guys would really consider who you cast your vote for, because Joe Biden and President Trump are completely different polar opposites. Trump's trying to stand the best he can on the Constitution and defending of it. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to reshape America in their image with socialism and doing away with the Constitution. Another distinction that can be made. What has Joe Biden done for our country? He gave us the crimes bill that put hundreds, if not thousands of people in prison for minor drug charges. I can think of that. But besides that, I can't think of anything. 47 years. The same lifespan I've been alive, that guy has been in government and seeming to accomplish nothing. And Donald Trump did more in 4 years than I think I've seen done by the last 4 presidents. He's made America greater, made us stronger, brought back business, manufacturing. And what happened to the days of Buy America? Joe Biden's Buy China, because he's sold out to China. Donald Trump brought something that hasn't happened in 26 years, and that's peace agreements between two Arab nations, United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. A major accomplishment that Donald Trump has done. And anything that brings peace between foreign nations, that opens up the doors for trade, is a good thing. And that ultimately means it's good for the United States as well. And so therefore I see that as another advantage Donald Trump has over Joe Biden, is he's actually accomplished something not only for the United States, but he's also been accomplishing things worldwide. I mean, for Pete's sakes, he opened the doors with starting to talk with North Korea after all these years. Now, I don't think we've really gotten anywhere, but at least the communication lines are there and can be opened. And that's something a whole lot more than Joe Biden's ever done. So Donald Trump has actually accomplished quite a few things that are good for the United States in his 4 years of his administration. And good things that he's done. Granted, he's made some bad decisions that I strongly disagree with him. One of those is the forcing of the bump stock ban, which I still believe is unconstitutional. And it is so disappointing that the courts are refusing to hear a case that is so clearly in favor of the bump stock owners, and that the ATF is overstepped the grounds. But that's a story for another day. So I disagree with him on that. And there's been other things that I've disagreed with him over. But by and large, at least with Donald Trump, we know what we're getting. Whereas Joe Biden, we absolutely do not know. So please consider your vote. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this video. If you've made it all the way to this point, thank you so much. Please hit like and subscribe if you would. Share this video with others, especially if you feel it's important. Take care. God bless. Have a wonderful afternoon. Hi, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to watch one of my videos. Please hit the like button below, and if you would, hit the subscribe link up here, and take some time to watch one of my other videos. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day. God bless, and take care of yourself.